What's up, everybody?
What's up, guys and gals? As you guys saw, our recording's going, right?
Recording's going.
All right, sweet. We December 15th. Welcome to the Crew and A call. We do have a special guest that will be joining us in a few minutes here, and I know his time is a little bit short today. So the idea of today's call is I was like, man, these are Crew and A calls. We need to have some more questions that you guys have that we can answer. I mean, that's why we're here. We come usually with some sort of a topic or some sort of ideas of things to talk about, but like we really want to know what it is that you guys are struggling with. And that's why we put that in the group. You know, what's your big struggle? What's holding you back from moving forward to where you want to go, or with your golf, with your fitness, with your nutrition, with whatever that is. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, obviously this is the time we're all kind of gearing up for the Forge or New Year's or 2023, whatever is in your future. And, so let's take advantage of it. Looks
Nice.
like
I see.
here comes our guy.
There he is.
There he is.
One Justin B. Bryant.
I made it.
He made it. He made it. So, fun fact, some of you may not know this. Well, first of all, Justin is a very good friend of ours, and client, golf partner has been a golf partner on occasion, kicked my tail all over the place. But Justin played professional golf and is one of the top mid amateurs in St. Louis here, and will one day hold a USGA title in his hands. He is the current national club champion. Is that right?
Yeah, I haven't heard it put that way, but yeah.
Yeah.
National club champion. That's
So
right.
two champions. So it's champion squared.
So he is the current club champion at St. Louis Country Club here in St. Louis, and then went on to the national championship, which they had in California, right?
Yeah, I was out in Palm Springs last
Out in
December.
Palm Springs. Is that happening again?
It's happening again. It's in February out at Kiowa, but I'm not able to defend my title, unfortunately.
Oh,
I know.
Well, it will always live on.
I know. I got the flag. I got the trophy. Yeah.
You'll have another chance.
That's right. Just give me your driver's license. I'll pose as you, and they'll never know the difference.
Never know.
Ryan, I've seen the slice before. I don't know if we're gonna go with that one yet.
Power fade.
Fade.
So I want Ryan to tell the story of the first time he met Justin before we get to Justin, and let you guys ask him a couple questions. So really today's all about helping the crew figure out what their struggles are and where they're going, and kind of introduce them to you, Justin. Hopefully we'll be doing some more of this in the future. But Ryan, tell about the first time you ever met Justin.
Yeah, which I don't think I've ever told Justin this. So it was out at Ruth Park where we do our mandatory golf Fridays. I think this is just another random day out there. And Jeff said, "Hey, I'm going to bring my buddy Justin out." I'm like, "Oh, cool." I think it's just us three, right?
Yeah.
So I just had no idea who Justin was. Bodine teed off, I teed off, whatever. Then I turned around and I just heard this freaking guy tee off, and I looked at him like, "Who is this freaking guy?" And it's a part that the first hole, it's par 4, and I think you almost drove the green on that. I'm like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. And then from there, it all the wheels fell apart for me, which typically I play better when I'm playing with better players. But yeah, that day was not me. And I think he did 2-putt one time on that goofy. What hole's that?
Oh yeah, I forgot about
number 5.
Number 5. The crazy valley hole
in St. Louis.
Yeah. So it was like in Kingpin where he hears the Amish guy. He's like, "I didn't see the strike." Yeah, I heard it. It was one of those. I'm like, "Oh." So it's different when a capable person is golfing.
So, guys, first of all, if you guys have any questions for Justin and for anybody, do me a favor and hit the little on the bottom of your screen. You should have a little reactions thing. There's a little raise your hand in there. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll unmute you or ask you to unmute. But Justin, tell us a little bit what's going on. Obviously the wintertime is hitting, and just kind of curious, what does your winter look like? What's kind of your plan? Do you have your plan put together? Just to give an idea of what somebody at your level is already thinking about as we move into the colder months here in St. Louis.
Yeah, no, it's been an interesting transition for me. So kind of a little bit more background for me is I'm from St. Louis. I played kind of competitively in high school and junior golf, and then kind of realized in college or high school that I wanted to see how good I could get at golf. So played at Wake Forest University for 5 years, took a victory lap there. I broke my wrist my sophomore year, so I redshirted and spent another year there. But was able to just be around a lot of really good players, and I wanted to continue to see how good I could get. So I played professionally for 7 years. Never made it to the PGA Tour, but played in, Corn Ferry events, which is kind of that level right below. It's kind of like the AAA equivalent. Played, any tournaments I could play. And then 2019, kind of missed getting my status for the web.com tour by a few shots. And I have 3 kids, and kind of COVID hit, and it was kind of time for me to look to do something else. So, reapplied to the USGA to get my amateur status back. So now I'm just a regular Joe and can compete in the amateur circuit. And I now work at Rapsodo, which is still in kind of the golf world. It's a sports analytics company, but we make launch monitors so you can kind of hit shots in the winter and or in the outdoors and that way. But it's been a real adjustment for me, just because for me it was always go and playing golf constantly. So I'm still learning myself kind of the best ways to like practice really efficiently, and just enjoy it too. And so balancing that with kids and work and social life has been a constant kind of learning process for me. But I think the main thing is something is kind of better than perfect practice. I would say is kind of step one, is just getting out there, getting a club in your hand, whether that's, 10, 15 balls, putting in your house. I think just kind of staying connected to the game, kind of will kind of help your feel a little bit. So I think the basics things you kind of in the winter you can do is just kind of like, it's kind of the boring stuff, but it's the important stuff in golf, of just kind of posture, grip, alignment, things like that, is kind of just checking in on those things. So the way to remember that is PGA. So posture, grip, alignment. And that's kind of the basics and fundamentals for just a good foundation to a golf game. So even if I'm playing poorly or swinging poorly, those are the things I check right away. So in the winter, brushing my teeth, make sure, alignment wise, I kind of got those feels. But with putting, it's, making sure you're hitting the ball where you started. So there's a couple of training aids you can do, but just hitting a little putt. So I think number one, it's just the feel, make sure you have that. And then from there, it's, if you can get outside and hit some, or go to a place that's got kind of an indoor bay and hit some shots, but really kind of figuring out what you want to work on. So for me, Jeff, cut me off if I'm talking too much, but for me,
all good.
I kind of am really know what my strengths and weaknesses are. So, I think a lot of players that want to get better don't know exactly how to do it. And the first thing that's going to help you is hitting the ball with your driver really well. So I would say step number one, complimenting Jeff, is you got to take care of your body, because I think the wintertime, you're not moving as much, you're sitting down. So it's kind of just trying to stay active and take, swings is really important. So for me, I'd like to gain just a little bit of swing speed. So it's kind of some of that swing speed training there's super speed, which is a way to kind of, stay loose and get some swings. There's the stack system, which is relatively new. It comes with like a program with the app, which is nice. But I'd like to gain a little bit of speed. So that's one thing I'm going to be focusing on this off season. A second thing is my wedges. So kind of shots inside of 100 yards, 120 yards is where I'm looking. And that's an area no one, even if you're, you can't get good enough with your wedges. And it's something that doesn't play favorites. So, distance, you might have certain ailments physically that you couldn't, gain speed or certain ways, but with your wedges, there's kind of no excuse. If you have the sand wedge, you can get better. So for me, it's working on launch angle. So with your wedges, you actually want to launch it lower. So when I say lower, it's kind of if you look at the bottom of your club, you know, if it's a 58 degree, you kind of want to launch it half of that. So around 29 degrees. So really any wedge, you want to hit it under 30 degrees. And that's going to produce with good contact, higher spin. So I'm actually somebody that launches their wedges kind of high, and I have traditionally. But this off season, that's something I'm going to be working on into the net, is really getting that feel for what do I need to do to hit the ball lower, and then working on the distances there. So when it's springtime, I at least have a general feel technique wise of what I'm looking for. So yeah, gaining some speed with the driver is a goal, or at least to be able to have that extra gear is something I've noticed in the last like 5 years. That's nice to have, like kind of a cruising driver, but like when it's a par 5 or a drivable hole, I've noticed I can kind of get another 3 to 5 miles an hour, which is nice, but would kind of always like to bump that up. So
Before we get to Victoria's question that I see in the chat here, so Justin mentioned that he works for Rapsodo, and one of the things that you were doing at Rapsodo was helping build out the combine. And so,
yeah,
you know, you ran me through the Rapsodo combine, the TrackMan combine, and did that with a lot of different people to help kind of figure out what you guys needed to include in there and how to make it better. And I'm just curious what you saw with the different players that you brought in to do that. And you probably ran, I don't know how many people through these different combines, but what were some of the consistent things that you saw? Like, I know that I was super shocked just, you know, going through the whole thing and really seeing that I had no idea what many of my distances were. And one of the coolest things that I saw was, like, I think it was like the 90-yard shot or whatever. You're like, you need to lay up to that distance every time, because that was by far the best shot that I had in my whole bag. But I'm curious, what are some of the aha moments that you saw people have when you took them through those combines, or even you as you guys were helping build this thing out?
yeah. So a little more background there for someone that doesn't know what a combine is. It's basically like, you can think of it as like a practice assessment. So there's different types of combines, but the one that I worked on at Rapsodo, it's basically three different clubs you take. So you would pick, you know, 90 yards, 150-yard shot, and a driver. And you would hit a total of 24 shots, 8 shots at each target, and kind of you would get a score and a handicap based on that, on kind of that, the result of your test. And honestly, it was like really wide ranging. We have a guy at work here who's probably a 25 handicap, but his driver was like 250, 260 right down the middle. So he drove it actually like a 5, equivalent to a 5 handicap.
Wow.
And then all of his
Jeez.
iron stations were equivalent to like a 35 handicap. So that's a pretty like unusual set, because normally the driver is hardest to hit, but for him, he's like a former baseball player. He just wants to hit the driver. So, but to him, I was like, hey, if you want to shoot lower scores, it's pretty obvious you can't get that much better with the driver based on your skill level right now. But like, if you just at least get a couple yardages you're comfortable with hitting your irons, the ones that are most frequent, your scores are going to drop. Just because the closer you hit the ball, you know, it's easier to putt and get it in the hole. So yeah, somebody like Jeff, when you're hitting, you know, if he's way better at 90 yards and like, you know, his proximity to the hole, and I forget what yours was, but I'll make up numbers. Let's say it was 20 feet from 90 yards, and then, you know, 80 yards, 70 yards, 100 yards around there, you're hitting it to 30 feet. It's kind of pretty obvious that Jeff really likes that 90. So I don't remember if it was a full swing or maybe it was a perfect 3/4, but that's a distance to you can know to lay up, because you hit it closer to the hole. So it's just really good to kind of see that feedback of strengths, and so ways you can work on things, but also just to like know what to try to do on the course.
Yeah. Yeah. That was pretty cool to see. Like, it was something very tangible that I could then go back to and say, okay, when I'm on the course, this is what I can kind of rely on. But when I'm going to the driving range, like your buddy at work, like, okay, you need to work on these other things. Now
Yeah.
I had one shot that was pretty good. Then I had a lot of other shots that I needed to work on, or distances, or even get, like you said, get comfortable with a couple other clubs that would be a little bit better. Let me get to a couple of these questions here. So Victoria says her question for the champ is, what's the absolute worst piece of golfing advice you've ever received?
I hate when someone says, what is it? Keep your head down.
Yeah.
It's what every golf person thinks. It's kind of like the equivalent, I guess, to break a leg kind of for acting, keep your head down. And there are times where that advice is necessary, but it is not helpful. It's easier to swing and turn through a shot for a lot of people if your head's actually moving and following the ball. And then I've never seen a really good chipper keep their head down and follow through. You don't see anyone on tour do that. So I think that's probably the worst advice that's out there. It applies to 5% of people that need
it. And what would you say? Is there one piece of advice that sticks out in your head that is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten? And who's it from?
The best piece of advice. Man, that's good. I mean,
or any big words of wisdom from Coach Haas? He's always got some
I
goodness.
think Coach Haas was really good. I mean, a lot of the ones, honestly, that are coming to mind are just mental, not necessarily mechanical things. So a couple mental ones that come out that just kind of blew my mind in terms of strategy. I kind of grew up and at least was told to, like, make sure you hit the fairway, be conservative because it's easier than the rough. And so I think with all these like analytics, it's really helped my game to shoot lower scores is if you're way more aggressive off the tee and actually more conservative into the greens. So unless there's like out of bounds on both sides of it or there's water, like I hit driver every single time. It's also a strength of mine. So gives you a shorter approach into the green. And then once I'm hitting that shot into the green, I'm not aiming at the pin, but I'm kind of swinging as if I'm, shooting a shotgun, knowing that there's going to be a pattern there. And so I won't get too deep into it, but essentially, if the pin's on the left side, I'm actually aiming, a couple feet right of the pin to take into account that I'm not going to hit it exactly where I'm looking every time, but over the course of the round, it's going to end up being good. So that's like probably helped my score the most. But Coach Haas had a really good one in terms of decision making on the course. I remember he told me like your round basically comes down to 6 moments, kind of your score. And that could be moments of, whether to go for a par 5 and 2 or not, because it's risky, or it's a really tough up and down and, getting that up and down and kind of the momentum that can build on that. Or, it's a really tough tee shot that you're uncomfortable with. And instead of kind of bailing out and hitting it out of bounds, you hit a really good one. And so, and it's really true that you can look back and you're really good in bad rounds is there's just a couple moments that you either take advantage of and kind of get propelled forward, or you maybe didn't perform well there, but you decided to have a good mental outlook and not let it bother you instead of really, letting it weigh down. So those are the two that kind of come to mind.
Cool. We got another one here from Marina. She says, first of all, thanks for coming on the call, and assume you might have reflected on your golfing year in 2022 and thought of the games when you played really, really well. How would you describe yourself on those occasions, and why do you think you played well in those situations?
Yeah, great question. My first thought, I went through an exercise a while ago. It was to write down, and it might have been honestly from a podcast I listened to with you, Jeff, with somebody had on, but was write down on a piece of paper right now what happens in a round of golf when you play well, 3 things, and what happens in a round of golf when you don't play well. So bad rounds. So for me, it was a really good exercise and something I still look at to this day. And so the main thing that I have there is don't let anything bother me. Nothing is going to bother me today. I don't care if I got had a tough day at work or, I hit the first 3 balls out of bounds. Not going to bother me. And so I think just like kind of having that attitude is like the biggest, most important thing, because, there's things going on in your life that you're stressed out about, or you just wake up on the wrong side of the bed. And golf's such a hard game mentally. You can always walk off the course and feel like you shot a better score. So I think there's time to reflect on that after the round, but during the round, it's kind of like, okay, I hit it in the bunker. The next challenge is, hitting a good bunker shot and going from there instead of dwelling on, man, I kept my head down, or I didn't do this in my backswing. And so I think kind of just letting go and enjoying the moment a little bit more has kind of been the biggest difference. And then just if I don't have it that day, just trusting that, right? So kind of the same thing as golf is a game where one day you can play really well, the next day your body feels completely foreign to you. And it's in those moments trusting I've put in the work, I know how to play, I don't need to play perfect, and I'm not going to let anything bother me. And so that's been like a complete game changer for me.
I remember, I can't remember how many years ago this was, two, three, maybe, when you played in that event at St. Albans.
Yeah.
And so this guy goes out. St. Albans has one of the biggest professional tournaments around these parts. What was that tournament? That's the
Metropolitan Open. So
Metropolitan Open.
Yeah.
And so big purse. Justin goes out, sets the course record with a 61. Is that right?
62. Yeah.
62 that day. And I remember that you were miserably sick that week. I'm curious how, kind of along the lines of Marina's question, what was your mentality that week? Knowing you weren't feeling well, going out there, obviously playing really well, but I mean, that had to kind of play on you a little bit mentally, the fact that you weren't feeling well, but you're playing well. Where was your head that week?
Yeah. So I think it's weird. A lot of people play well. I feel like if they have some kind of ailment that's not like stopping them from playing, because I think it takes your mind to really simple terms. And I remember that week, it was really hot. I felt terrible, and kind of you're like in survival mode. So my focus was literally, okay, I picked the distance. Where do I want to hit this shot? I'm going to hit the shot. So I think I was so simple in that. And that's actually been something that I try to take away, is instead of like playing golf swing out there, I think about, where do I want the ball to land? How do I want the ball to get there? And that's all I try to think about. So that week I did that really well. Didn't end up winning the event. I think the sickness kind of got to me after. So day one I played, I shot 62. I think I made 9 birdies. It's probably the best ball striking round I've ever had. I had 16 or 17 birdie putts inside of 15 feet. So it was kind of one of those crazy days where everything was clicking, even though I was playing terrible. The second round, I made 8 birdies, but I made a lot of bogeys and shot, I think 70, 1 or 2 under. And then the last day I shot like 4 over, and I didn't win, but it was a really good experience because I had a 4-shot lead going into the final round and kind of had felt worse at that point. And plus you kind of add the stress of the tournament on, of like, sleeping on the lead. And there's like an interesting just mental aspect of that feeling, because you feel like now you're kind of playing a little more defensive. So I think in that final round, it was not understanding my swing as much as I wanted, to be honest, on top of not feeling well. And so then you kind of just don't trust everything. So to bring it full circle, the club championship that was in December that I had won, the national club championship, pretty similar experience, honestly. Like kind of was
Really?
a little sick, not as sick, but a little sick. The first round I shot 66 at PGA West. The second round played well, but not quite as well. Shot 69. And then I think I also had like a 4 or 5 shot lead. And I had the same thought of like, okay, I've been here before. I've started to hit it a little worse the day before. And so going into that final day, I had a horrible warm up before the round. And you're just kind of like, oh boy. Like if we're just being honest, pure thoughts, it was like, I've blown a lead before. My swing feels terrible. I'm a little under the weather. How do I get this done? And I went back to that of like, I'm just going to make it happen. I'm going to focus on this single shot that I can control. And majority of my drives that day, I teed it like this low because I was hitting it everywhere. And my thought was, if I tee it low and you launch it low, you're not going to hit it as far, but I can't get as far offline. And I played that way and somehow shot 65, 7 under, and won by a bunch. But it wasn't the day where I was like, I feel really good. It sounds funny, but like, I kind of just was like, I'm going to hit it here. If it doesn't go there, we'll figure it out. So I think it's just kind of like, you have to kind of fail a little bit, but kind of learn. And part of it, I understood my game better. I knew how to kind of get more out of the round. But I think you can't underestimate golf's not reactionary, so you can't underestimate kind of that mental state you're in, and you kind of have to make your own rhythm. And so it's just so important to kind of have a good mental outlook.
The whole survival mode thing makes a lot of sense to me. It's almost like you go back to just kind of that lizard brain, right? Like just
Yeah.
see ball, hit ball. I think it was when we were talking to the guy that started Whoop, Will, I can't remember his last name, but he was saying that, as they've tracked this data over the last, I don't know how many years they've been actually tracking with like CrossFit and Olympic athletes. He was saying that they've actually seen that more times than not, when somebody wins like a big championship or, like a gold medal or things like that, they often see that the Whoop kind of rates you on your recovery level of, you get a green score, yellow score, red score. He actually said that they've seen a lot of the time somebody is in like more of a red score where they're kind of worn down.
That's wild.
And I wonder if that has something to do with it. It almost kind of shuts off your ability to go so crazy with your thoughts that you're just like, let's just get this done and get this over with.
Yeah.
And, and it makes a lot of sense.
It's like one foot in front of the other. You just go.
Exactly. And that's what you hear when, you listen to some of these like ultra marathoners or these guys that have done these crazy Ironman races. This guy, the Iron Cowboy, who did 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. His whole thing was like, I just focused on either the next mile or the next step or like running to the end of this block, or, like you just focus on that one little thing to get you to the next one. And then you look ahead to the next piece. So that's pretty cool. Rhino, you got any questions for Justin?
Yeah, that's very, there's a list that had come in before that. So going back to, well, number one, Justin gave me a good piece of advice. And I still give it to everybody when I was teeing off with a 3-wood because my driver was not working that day. And he told me always use a tee. And I see so many guys I play with not using a tee. I'm like, hey, a professional golfer told me to always use a tee. So always use a freaking tee, idiots. Nope, that's not right. Does that hold true for irons also?
Yeah, coach. That was another Coach Haas thing. I think a couple times on a par 3, I just threw my ball down and he said, always use a tee. And I was like, why? This grass is perfect. And he goes, at a tee, you can legitimately guarantee yourself a perfect lie. He said, so if you can tee it up, tee it up.
All right. Well, you've just lost credit for that. Now I'm going to quote Coach Haas.
Yeah, I know. It's all right.
That's all right. So yeah, that was a good one. So another thing that I've heard, and a couple of people have asked me about this, is like you say you're trying to work on your wedges in the off season here. For people who aren't that great at golf, maybe like I don't know, 12, 15, 18 handicap, I've been told a number of times that you should not have a 56 in your bag or 57 or whatever. Just keep it simple and hit even just a pitching wedge when you're around the green. So what are your thoughts on that? Do I just need to throw my 56 in the trash?
I would throw it in the trash. There's a second swing. You can always sell it on there for a little cash instead of just throwing it away. No, I mean, I think it depends. I would keep it in your bag. I mean, the general rule is just to keep it as low to the ground as possible. Just because when you bring any shot of chip shot, like you're trying to hit it up in the air, you'd be surprised how few times pros actually do that unless they need it. And the pros that do that aren't the best short game players to have that versatility to hit it low. So a pitching wedge, kind of run it around the ground. There's less variables. When you try to hit like a chip shot, it can be harder if your technique's good. And then you bring in, the equation of spin and things like that. So kind of, if you can just take a pitching wedge and kind of like almost putt it, kind of like that's a very simple chip, do that unless you can't. So I think that's sound advice. Don't throw away your club.
Right.
Justin,
go ahead, buddy.
Would you suggest, I've heard some coaches say to get good with just one club around the green, or other coaches say, get used to basically that same kind of little stroke, but let the equipment do the job of like how far it's going to roll out. So, maybe you're using a 9-iron or a pitching wedge or 52 degree or whatever, would you suggest just getting good with one and really understanding, how far you're hitting it, or get used to understanding how far that ball is going to roll out based on the degree of the club that you're using?
Yeah, I think it probably depends on kind of your desires in the game and your skill level. So if you're like somebody that's like, hey, I'm just going to be like a weekend golfer, like I just want to be able to like chip the ball, I would say, get your sand wedge or pitching wedge and like kind of learn how to hit that technique wise. And then kind of as you get better, that's when you want to kind of bring in other clubs, because it gives you, just a better chance to hit a better shot in different circumstances. So I would say it's a blend of both. But I've never met someone that's fantastic at their short game that only uses one club. It's just, you got to learn how to hit different shots in different situations, but you should for sure get the basic, fundamentals with one club. But that's kind of my advice.
Cool.
Yeah. So then you want to get the other thing, you want to gain speed this winter. So what are you going to do for that?
It's a good question. I think the speed is, I'm trying to kind of figure out exactly what my goal is. I think first off, I think it's hard with anything you do in any part of life, is if you don't know where you're trying to go, it's hard to kind of put a good game plan. So I would say that my, not to get too in the weeds, so I'm probably like I carry the ball for my skill level. I'm very average distance wise. So I carry it in the air, 280, 285. So it probably rolls out to 300 yards. So I'm looking for, would love to hit it like 290, 295 in the air. So that's going to equate as I've kind of maxed out my launch condition. So it's more ball speed. So I kind of need my ball speed to get in 170 range. So it means I need to be swinging probably about 115 to hit 170. And so that's not that much. I'm probably swinging at 112 right now, club head speed. So within that, there's two things. So I think I've used super speed in the past. I think they're fantastic. I'm going to actually experiment with the stack system, which is just a different training aid to work with. It comes with an application and makes the process a little easier. And then lastly, it's maxing out on 5 to 10 drivers 3 times a week. So we actually have a hitting net in our office, and I go there and I just take 5 to 10 swings where I'm trying to max out. And it's been an interesting process to kind of just see what you have in the tank. These aren't swings that I would do on the first hole of the tournament that I was trying to win, or a tight drive, but I think it's, Jeff probably knows more about this than me, but it's kind of just training your body to see what you're capable of. And so it's pretty astounding what you can do when you're not trying to hit it straight and you let your body and athleticism just take over. It's 20 yards. It blows your mind. I mean, again, I hit it 280, 285 on like an average comfortable drive. And just yesterday here, I was messing around swinging and I was carrying it 297.
Question for you: when
bizarre.
You do that,
yeah,
since you're only going in the bay and hitting like 5 drives, are you doing any kind of a warm up before you do that, or do you just kind of go straight from your desk?
Cold turkey, no real stuff. No, I mean, yeah, it's not as probably good of a warm up as you would like, Jeff. But
I know it's not.
it's a little bit of stretching, and I work myself up. I mean, I'll hit some wedges, hit some 7-irons, some 3-woods, normal drives, and then I get kind of max out at the end.
Okay.
I'm not coming in cold turkey and then swinging 5 to 10 times as hard as I can.
That's what I was hoping.
Yeah, it's not that at all. And I'm not trying to be Bryson DeChambeau. I just think, I think it's good for your body too, to kind of push it on certain things, especially in the wintertime when I'm not playing as much. And speed's something that I think if you don't use it, you lose it. So it's just
I think it's great because there aren't really any consequences either, right? So like you can go out there and obviously get warmed up, get the muscles alive and ready. And but if somebody were to do that and not do any kind of a warm up, you're also kind of neurologically just shortchanging what your body thinks it can do too. So like if you go out, you're a little cold and stiff and you do 5 swings and you think, let's say you swing at 114 miles an hour. Well, that's cold, but your body and your brain then think, that's my max, and
Yeah.
it won't really push. And then you go and you get a little warm up in, and then you do that, and now you get another mile an hour or whatever that might be. But yeah, to do that every now and then, a couple times a week, is, especially during the wintertime, is the perfect time to do that. Now, I would also recommend anyone listening that they put some effort into, making sure that your body is then also able to handle that speed. So that's where obviously the strength training and
100%.
stabilizing and mobilization kind of exercises and stuff are. You can't just go out and try to swing as fast as you can and expect nothing bad to happen over the winter time. So and
For
obviously
sure.
obviously Justin knows that. So
It's a good exercise too. Is it's funny when I like help friends or anyone that's new to the game or trying to improve, how slow they swing relative to what they're even capable of swinging. And
mhm.
fast is relative to whoever it is. So I'm not even, I'm talking to somebody that could be swinging 60 and they can now swing 80 miles an hour. Or even my son who's 5 years old is it's sometimes you kind of have to mentally unleash the circumstance of the shot. And obviously you got to make sure your body is capable of it. I don't want anyone to get hurt, but just it's a good exercise in general, even at the range, to kind of like, okay, I actually don't care where this ball goes. Let's see what happens. So,
Mhm.
because I think people get so tense when they're trying to hit it straight.
Right. Hey, and if you, I know your time's a little limited, so if you need
Yeah,
to,
I'm good right now. Sorry,
to
I'm
chat,
good.
cool. Randy asks, have you ever tried adding length to your driver shaft?
I haven't. There was a time where I was thinking about doing that. I haven't. And now they've kind of limited how long you can get the drivers. I think mine's a little longer than I should probably know what my driver length is now. I think I'm at 45. So I think I could maybe do it another inch or half an inch, maybe. I haven't, but yeah, that's a good way to do it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Randy's a long drive guy, so he
Randy, my man.
Yeah, let's go ahead and unmute yourself, Randy.
there he is.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had tried that. I know that Jack Nicklaus actually went up to, I think, 47.5, that he was still able to maintain accuracy and gain distance and club head speed. But remember last week we talked about how Jack, he also counterbalanced the driver, so it stayed right around the C9 swing weight.
Yeah, I haven't messed with something that long. I got curious about it probably like a year or two ago. It's always hard for me to change my equipment that much, I think, just because I get a little nervous, just with competitive play, if I'm being honest. But I've done it with like 3 woods and hybrids, to gain a little bit more distance, and it definitely helps.
Well, what you could do is you could get a butt extender and just put it in the end of
Yep.
your, and cut it off whatever you want, and you could always take it apart if you like. So
Have you
but you're-
tried swinging a really long one? What kind of driver do you?
well, I used to swing up to 50 inches in competition, but my best
awesome.
results, I think my best result, well, Wedgie Winchester, you guys remember him, used to swing 60 inches, but
Wow.
Lord.
it was funny. But I think I had my best results at 48 inches. What's your weight, the driver, your swing weight?
Randy, you're going to be disappointed. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so that was something my cousin played on the tour for many years.
Okay.
And, he would try to keep it right around the C9 DO, and he was one of the biggest hitters on the tour.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I don't want to say it because I know I'm going to say it wrong, but it's probably different. Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I got nothing.
So that might be something to consider, is maybe trying a butt extender and seeing if you can gain some club head speed with still maintaining accuracy.
Yeah,
There's the trick.
I'm all for it.
There we go.
I'm all for it.
All right, Rhino, we got any other ones in the queue there?
Yeah, so the one question was, it's been a minute since Wake Forest. Did you guys do much weight training back then? And now, does the golf team, do they get in the gym at all or more? Or how does the training change, if at all?
So I can't speak specifically to what they do now. I know it's changed drastically. I would
Mhm.
think it's probably for the better. So when I was there, we did training, I think 3 to 4 times a week. It was normally 6 a.m. or something like that, in the gym. But our trainer was the football strength and conditioning trainer.
Right.
So I think, working with Jeff, there was definitely some things that were good. And then there's some things I'm like, was it good? And it wasn't as individualized when we did it. So it was kind of like, hey, this is our team. These are the general movements. So um, I don't know how it is now. I know Wake has like, a nutrition center and all those kind of things. So I imagine there's probably more golf specific type training, not necessarily workouts, but just people with, the knowledge to know what's kind of the right things and right exercises to do in season and not. Because for us, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, we know we should be doing this. So we did it. We did something. But
Right.
definitely
Yeah.
wasn't optimized. And we worked out in polo shirts sometimes. So
Just like Wheeler.
yeah, exactly. I remember Webb worked out in a long sleeve polo. And I was like, that's a look.
That's hilarious.
That is a look.
Yeah, I mean, I would venture to say I don't know who the strength coach is at Wake. If I did a little digging, I could find that out. But I guarantee that they've got someone specifically dedicated just to the golf team. I mean, I think they've got an incredible facility out there now, right?
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know if they have
awesome.
I don't know if they have a
Unbelievable.
specific gym or workout center for the golf team, or if that's a little bit more generalized for the school. But guaranteed, all of these top level D1 programs have somebody that's now, or almost all of them have somebody that's now programming specifically for the golf team. And it's probably got a mix of, some of the stuff that you guys did that was a little bit more like heavy strength and conditioning that the football team would have done. But then there's a lot more that's related to the mobility and stability and rotation and, all the things that we talk about here that aren't just straight, deadlifts, squats, bench presses, which
Yeah.
I remember talking to a friend of ours, Sean Jasper, about his days at Mizzou. Same thing. They were just doing straight, what we would call now meathead football style workouts as the golf team. And it was funny because, most of the golfers are, these tall, lanky guys or short, 5'9" guys that are skinny with no meat on their bones. And they're trying to get them to do all these heavy compound lifts. And, there's some benefit to it, but not specific enough for what they really needed to do.
Yeah. Wasn't looking at like the season and all that. It was kind of like, yeah, so what the football guys did. And
Yeah, we need to do stuff.
yeah.
Just do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. So yeah, that landscape has changed drastically. And I will credit, so much of that to TPI and them coming in and helping to educate so many of the medical professionals, the golf instructors, and obviously the fitness instructors in as far as, what are some of the more specific needs for the movement patterns of the golfers, what parts of the body need to move better, where should we be focusing our time, as opposed to just the general strength training or bodybuilding style strength training.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding. So how many days, like during the season, how many days do you play golf, whether it's actually playing or hitting the range?
In college or right now or what?
Right now.
Ooh, man, it's not as much as you'd think right now. I probably played 25 rounds last year, and I bet you
That's-
23 of them were tournaments. So,
That's way lower than I would have guessed.
yeah, I mean, it's not that a desire. It's because I have a 5, a 4, a 1-year-old boy and a wife that I love more than golf. But no, it's
Clearly.
yeah. I don't know the answer to that. I think the less I've played, it's actually kind of been helpful in a weird way because you think about your swing differently and you kind of have more time to like really. I think when I was playing like full time and you're like, okay, I'm going out tomorrow, is you kind of like sometimes can go down these roads where I don't know if it's not, you just don't have clarity exactly on what you're trying to do. You think you do, but kind of like going back and kind of being forced to not practice as much, it's helped me realize like, okay, what do I need to work on today? Or just like, how am I going to get better at golf? Because I don't want to get worse. And so it's kind of provided that clarity, and being able to like sneak in 20, 30 balls at work has definitely helps. But I don't know. I go through spurts, but it's not a lot of golf.
So
Yeah.
along those lines, I know that when you were playing full time, you're one of the guys that you tracked a lot of stuff. You had
Mhm.
spreadsheets and you were tracking. What are the things that you still track? Like, you just said, now it's a matter of if I can go out and hit 30 balls or whatever, you have to utilize that time a lot more succinctly. And so now you're a lot more like us regular people, right?
Yeah.
So, but obviously I know that you have a purpose when you go and you hit those 30 balls. You don't just go bang 30 balls and don't pay attention to what you're doing like many regular golfers do when they go out to the driving range. You just get a bucket and they hit. So what are the things that you still are tracking, or are there games that you play, or how do you utilize that time best?
Yeah. So it's I still track a lot. If I play a tournament, I still track my stats. So I use an app called it's what Mark, I don't even remember what it is. I'll have to look. It's Mark Brody who kind of invented strokes gained. But
Yeah.
essentially you track where every ball, how far you have into every hole, and kind of where it lands. And I think there's other ones that use strokes gained, but to me that's like the best way to kind of understand where you're losing or gaining strokes relative to kind of your skill set. So I track all of that for tournaments, and then I can kind of make assessments, because to me that's kind of all I care about is how I play in events. So I think it's me breaking down my practice into two buckets. So there's kind of the technique kind of practice, and then there's the performance based practice. And I would say when I used to play full time and growing up, it was like 80% of the time was on mechanical and 20% was on performance. And I'll kind of get a little bit into what those are like, but probably part of it's as I've gotten better, but I've also like understood what matters more. And so like I think growing up, like I wanted my swing to lurk a certain way, or I still don't like seeing my swing on video, but realizing like that doesn't really matter that much. I mean, there's importance to it and having good fundamentals and technique, but really if you can control your golf ball, that's what it's about. And so I work on certain things in my swing. So like if I'm hitting into a net and I can't see it, majority of the time for me, it's mechanical, right? So if I'm not playing a tournament coming up, I'll work on some fundamental type things. But if it's in season or I have an event, it's like 99% of the time is focused on performance-based practice. What I mean by that is it's all about the result. So if I'm on the range, it's not about like working on a specific move or like where the club is at the top of the swing. It's, am I hitting the drive in the window that I envision hitting it in? And is it flying with the trajectory that I want it to do? So there's a ton of different games you can do there. So like whether it's a combine with a TrackMan or things like that, or if it's just like going to a range and trying to hit that 100-yard post out there, different yardages, and then you can get further with that. So okay, I want to hit it the 100-yard post, but it's got to be left of the post, then it's got to be right of the post. Just working on controlling the ball. So bunch of games there. And then putting, I really now only hit like 80-foot putts, and then like 5-footers.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't putt as much as I used to, but I think I hit the 80-footers because it's like a super long putt. So I always thought like if you had feel, like if you just go to your local range wherever you go, maybe it's only 30 feet there, but you pick the longest putt you can. And if you have good speed from that distance, and then you can make the putts inside of 5 feet, I feel like I'm going to putt well, but I also feel like mentally I'm going to feel good after the round, because you don't necessarily leave your round of golf thinking like I putted terrible. If you didn't make, if you two putted from 25 feet every time you played, you wouldn't be like I putted bad or good. You just be like, yeah, I hit it to 25 feet. It'd be more about the ball striking. But
Yeah.
if I'm hitting like it to 40 feet and then I'm like, my distance control is not good, or I'm hitting it close, chipping it close, and I'm missing the short ones, that's like the round deflators. So for me, that's kind of where I spend most of my time putting when I practice.
Awesome.
And it's not very long. So
Super helpful.
Yeah, that's I like those 80-foot putts. That's fun.
yeah, you look
Those are the only
ridiculous. You
putts
gotta
Ryan gets.
Yeah. I have to be
you
good at
better
those.
practice them.
Yeah, those are
It's-
my 5-footers.
It sounds like a Texas putt. They're always bigger in Texas.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. Justin, what do you do like on a, well, I guess every day? What do you do to warm up?
Yeah, so I it normally starts like at home. I have kind of some like I have a couple like a foam roller. I have some stretches I go through, and then whether it's taking like one of those massage guns like Theraguns, kind of just generally to areas of the body that maybe don't feel good, or for me historically aren't as good, like some of the hip areas, low back, shoulder areas. That's kind of what I do at home. I get to the course and I hit about 5 balls left-handed with my lob wedge flipped. And if I'm not feeling super confident, I'll just swing without the ball. And then I kind of gradually work my way up. So I'll hit some like chips and then wedges, and then kind of go not fully through the bag, but hit some wedge shots, eight irons, 4 irons, 3 woods drivers, and then I'm pretty good to go.
What do you think? Like
Why the
20 or-
left-handed?
Okay, and then like 20 or 30 balls.
Yeah.
And,
How many balls?
yeah.
Yeah, it's probably 30. It's probably 30. Why the left-handed? Probably something you told me, Jeff, to be honest. No, I mean, I think it's just kind of like coordination. It's a different part of the body, but for me, I feel like it gets me looser. One. And then two, I know one time a year I'm gonna have to hit a left-handed shot. So I want to have some sort of skill to get it in there. But it's mainly the first, just to kind of get loose on the opposite side of the body.
Cool. I love it. Not sure I told you to do the flip and hit, but I like the swing.
You like the
outside.
lefty
Yeah,
swings?
I
Yeah.
like the lefty
Every
swings.
once in a
Yeah.
while, I like shank the lefty ones, and someone's looking at me like, "What are you doing?"
What's wrong with this
Maybe I'll
guy?
just take the practice swing.
Yeah. For the record, when Justin said he doesn't like to look at his swing on film, I think somewhere on our Instagram we have a video of Justin swinging. It looks just fine. Yeah.
No, it's fine, but I don't think any golfer has ever looked at their swing and they're like, "Yeah, that's how I want
Yeah,
it to look."
true.
So
Very true.
Yeah.
All right, folks,
Ben Hogan, maybe. That's
Yeah.
about it.
yeah, exactly.
I
He can find
guarantee he
something
didn't.
wrong. Yeah,
I
he'd
guarantee
find
Ben
something
Hogan
wrong.
didn't.
Yeah.
Folks, we got about 7 minutes left here, so this is your last chance to ask Justin anything that you want on the live call here. Rhino, any other ones in the hopper there that came through?
Yeah. I wonder. So, like, I'm to the point where I suck so bad at soccer that I'm so frustrated that it's almost turning me off of the game. So, like, percentage wise, how far do you think your game is like dwindled a little bit since you don't play nearly as much as you did 2
Or
years
has it?
ago? Or right? Or you? I mean, it could be 0%, or it could be it's gotten better because I mean, it sounds like you've really simplified
Yeah,
the
I
whole
feel
thing.
like I'm better.
You son
I
of
think-
a bitch.
I think I don't think I necessarily am as consistent. So like when I played a lot, I think pretty proud that like my bad was never bad. Now when I play bad, it's worse. But I feel like it just feels rustier, if that makes sense. So like kind of the wedge shots that I'm not hitting as well, that's where I notice it. Versus like the driver's pretty much the same, and the stock iron shot's pretty much the same, but it's kind of like those touch shots that you don't play as much is kind of where you're kind of like, oh man, it's not what I was envisioning.
Right.
So
So yeah, you'll end up being one of those 7-year-old dudes who's still hitting 290 yards down
that's
the
the
pipe.
dream. That's the dream. I
Yeah.
don't know.
And who
That's the
knows
mission. That's the
yeah.
mission here.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
Poster
who-
boy.
Hopefully it's more than 25 rounds up when I'm
Well,
Yeah.
you got
70, we'll
17
see.
more years when the littlest one is gone.
Yeah, I'm trying to like brainwash them into loving golf though. So hopefully, they want to play, and it's like, oh, well,
I'm just
gotta go
yeah,
play.
I'm just being a dad. That's all. It
Yeah.
just happens to I do all my parenting on the course 100 times a year.
Exactly.
Justin, I'm curious, is there anybody that you still work with at all on your swing, technique wise? Or is there anybody even online that you follow or kind of subscribe to?
Man, there's so much good information online now. It is
Mhm.
insane. So I
It's
worked.
almost overwhelming.
It is. I worked with a guy, Jack Lumpkin, for pretty much my whole career. He's down in Georgia. So I don't see him anymore. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what I want to do and kind of like So his teaching with me was kind of wanted me to self-diagnose on the course. And so I feel like he really did a good job of that. So I feel like I feel like I know my swing really well. So I don't necessarily work with people, but I'm constantly watching everything that's out there pretty much just to kind of see how certain people view things. So my kind of thing is like trying to find any of those like playing lessons, or like if it's Tiger or anybody, like kind of trying to learn like how do the really good players do it, and if they have anything in common, kind of what are the feels. So that's kind of the extent of it. But I don't work with anyone and like send them videos or things like that. I kind of try to do it as much as I can, but that doesn't mean I'm not trying to constantly learn more, if that makes sense.
Yeah. How has working at and for Rapsodo impacted your whole golf career right now, as far as like, obviously you have access to technology, right?
Yeah.
And do you feel like that's been a big part of helping you kind of simplify some of the things because you do have access to that?
It definitely has. I think, well, one, I've gotten some cool free lessons. So I've got to spend a day with Mark Blackburn, who teaches like Max Homa.
Yeah.
I got a full day lesson with him that was just purely for marketing, but I was the subject of it. So that was cool.
So cool.
And learned a lot from him. So there's nice perks like that at Rapsodo, but I think just, yeah, kind of I wasn't totally into the data before. I think I was like, oh, I'm a field player. Like, yeah, I need to learn how far my distances are, but there's so many little things you can do with like a launch monitor, just with like launch angle. So with the driver there, there's things on, instead of hitting it, with an 8-degree launch, if I hit it with a 15-degree launch, you get other more distance. So things like that. I talked about the wedges, trying to hit them lower. I think before I would kind of float them in the air, and if it was not windy day, I was a pretty good wedge player. But then if it's, a downhill shot into the wind, wasn't as good of a wedge player. And it's kind of just understanding, well, really good wedge players typically hit it pretty low with high spin and, slight draws. And so I've kind of learned how I can use data to kind of get better. Instead of kind of being overwhelmed by the numbers, it's just kind of figuring out what the few numbers that I need to kind of look at are. So,
yeah, I feel like that's the key with any of this technology, is it's not just about getting a bunch of numbers. And that's one of the reasons why like Whoop and some of these other technology, they don't give you a whole lot of information. They make it as simple as possible. Green score, yellow score, red score, right? Just to keep it simple and not overwhelm you with all of the data that's collected, because sometimes it's like, well, okay, cool, I got all these numbers. What am I going to do with it? So, because I've always been kind of intimidated with that kind of stuff. Like, okay, I'm not a guy that loves to track and use spreadsheets, and even, hearing that from somebody like you that I know did and does track a lot of that stuff, but it can still be super overwhelming. So,
yeah, well, we're going to get you on the range soon. We're going to get a launch monitor. Do you have one set up at the gym?
So Casey comes in and does Casey is the head pro from Old Warson, and he brings his TrackMan in. So he is able to get the TrackMan in this bay to work.
Oh, nice.
So that's pretty cool. You just got to scoot up on the mat just a little bit. But I have not, at least recently, I have not used the Rapsodo in here in a long time. So I need a tutorial on
we're
Rapsodo
gonna
again.
change that in 2023.
Yeah. Yeah, Justin's going to be part of our quest here to make Ryan and I better golfers, and by proxy, the rest of 18 Strong as well. So, all right, guys. Any last second questions before we let Justin go here? Anyone?
Yeah, that's pretty. What's your main goal in 2023? Since you can't repeat champion.
Yeah, I can't read champion unless you come in and steal the show. I mean, if you're saying what's the one thing I want to win the US Mid-Am. I mean, that's like the gold standard. So there's a lot of things that need to get into place. So there's many goals of getting into the event, getting into match play, but that would be the top of the list.
Nice.
Awesome.
When is that?
That's in September. So I'll throw that down, but yeah, it's a big goal, but definitely one that I feel like I can accomplish. So
that's a good one. That's a really good one.
We're going to kind of keep track of Justin here, and kind of put some of the stuff out that's going on with his career as the year goes on too. Hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of him, and there might be some talks of bringing him on as a little bit of a help of hosting some podcast episodes and stuff like that. So
Heck
hopefully
yeah.
we'll be seeing a lot of this guy in the future. And in this gym that's sitting right next to me here.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
You get me on the range, I'll get you in the gym.
Hey, that's a good deal.
I like it.
Done.
We'll document the
fix-
journey of both of us. How
Yeah,
about
we'll
that?
fix Ryan's slice in the midst of it, and we'll be on
That's
our
right.
way. If we can get you hitting
Like
the
that.
draw by 2024, then we've really done something.
This guy would crush a
Sold.
ball. He's got swing speed, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He just loses about 50 yards from left to right.
Yeah, that ball sees the whole fairway, left to right.
All right, guys. Justin, thanks, man. Thanks for coming
Yeah.
on. We'll definitely have to do this again. And I know the folks are saying in the chat here, thanks for coming on. So we'll be keeping in touch and bring you on back soon. And thanks
Yeah,
again.
thanks for
bud,
having me. It's fun talking.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Thanks, bud.
All righty.
All
All
right.
right, guys.
See
We'll
you,
catch up
everybody.
with you. Oh, real quick. For the Forge call that we talked about doing the Thursday before New Year's, I think we
Yes.
should shift that to next Thursday to give a little bit more runway between giving people some info on the Forge and when it actually starts. So let's do that next Thursday.
Okay.
So for those of you on here, if you guys have any questions regarding the Forge, bring those to the call next week. We'll prompt some things in the Facebook group too about that. I'm going to twist Justin's arm, see if he'll jump in the mix with us on the Forge. And but let's do that next Thursday so we can have a little bit more of a run up to the start date as opposed to people scrambling last couple of minutes.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool. All right.
All right. We'll
See you guys next week. Adios.